So for anyone I don't know, my name is Jason Purr, and our company is Workflow Intelligence Nexus. And let me see if I can get my camera on here for a second. Oh, always loves coming on the camera on the one I don't ever look at. So give me 1 second to choose my other one here. Let's see, webcam. There we go. All right. All right. So so thank you for joining. So what we're going to look at today is our subclipping workflow for Iconic. We're doing these new workflow webinars. We've done 2 of them so far. This is our 3rd one. And every month we're going to be featuring one of the many workflows that we have built on top of Iconic. At this, we've built over 300 workflows into Iconic. Of those workflows, a lot of them are very specific to specific customers' needs, but we have probably about a top 40 that are workflows that work for a lot of customers that tend to be our most popular ones. And so what we're doing in this series is we're going to just be going through all of those every month, out a featured workflow and talking about it and showing everyone what it looks like. So without further ado, today we're going to jump in and take a look at subclipping. So to start, let's talk about a little bit about why subclipping is so important for people. So we have, in the world of Iconic, a lot of people have been starting to move more and more of their content into the cloud, especially over pandemic time. A lot of companies who've been thinking about this really took the initiative to finally do that, and we see more and more source content up in the cloud, which is great because it allows us to use all sorts of other cloud services. It allows us to get from that central repository on site that you have to have people in the office to be able to fully utilize. However, at the same time, it opens up challenges, especially when you're working with long form content, of how people are going to get access to that content in an efficient manner. Again, also, especially not just long form content, but when you have long form content of pretty large files. So what we've done is created this subclipping workflow, and we've made it very dynamic that it can work in a number of different ways. So the process I'm going to show you works regardless of which one of these configurations you have. But to just go through it real quick, the different options for configuration are: you can do subclipping with Zencoder as a transcoder, Amazon Media Convert, you can use Vantage running on a local system, you can use FFmpeg running on a local system, and you can use Dolby Hybrid running in cloud. So those are all the options currently available, and I'm sure we'll probably continue to add on other transcoders as needs arise from different people. But for the most part, these options tend to cover everyone's cases pretty well so far. So why is this important? Let's take a look. Right now, we're looking at one of our Iconic domains here, and I have a whole bunch of content in here from some of my own personal collection of random stuff that I've shot in the past. And so, for example, if we go into a fun clip like this one, as an editor, I might come down here and see that, well, there's just a piece of this clip that I really care about, because I got this nice little video here. We're demoing a shark suit, and this guy on the right is a shark suit maker. And if we watch this clip,
I'm going to do some of this. I can do something like
so
that.
there's all the prep.
Just keep going. We're just kind of mess with this thing like this. Like this.
So we want to move forward, find the actual spot we care about. Right, see where he goes crazy and starts attacking the guy with a knife. Let me back up a little bit more, mark an endpoint. All right, so we find a spot that we like, we mark an out point. We're going to come down here to our metadata. And within our metadata, we're going to go into a subclipping section, and we might do something like Dale gets attacked by a knife. And then we can add a summary. We can add all sorts of other specific metadata here and be able to create that time-based metadata. Now on this clip, it's nice to be able to have that segment. It's not that big of a deal because this whole clip's only 6 minutes long, so it wouldn't take very long to download this clip. So instead, let's take a look at something a little bit different. Here we have a fun little video from back in 2010 when I did a presentation on a product called Final Cut Server that we happened to have a courtroom set. So we did the whole presentation inside of a courtroom set. And this video is a much longer video. I believe this one's 43 minutes long. And so this is a much bigger file. So if I'm sending this out for people to be doing editing at home, I don't want them to have to pull down the whole file. So in this case, I just want to grab some highlights of this file. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go through and do some logging. So I've done some logging over here. And within that logging, it's the same one I was showing before where I can come here, go to subclip, and right now I have title, summary, and a talent field. Now I can add any fields I want into this very quickly and easily. So just to illustrate that, if I duplicate this, the settings inside of Iconic, if we just go to subclip, we have two things that are important here. We have subclip information and we have just our general subclip metadata view. So this subclip metadata view is the one where I choose what fields I'm going to use when I'm tagging my subclips. So by default, I normally have a title and a summary. You have to have this subclip created and confirm subclip file generation. But then in addition to that, I can add any other fields I want. So right now I just added a talent field to identify who it is that's in there. Then if I go back to my metadata views, I have one other field, which is my subclip information field. And this is where at the top, you're going to see all the job IDs and job information from things like Zencoder or other transcoders that you have deployed. And then at the bottom, there's an inherited section. Any metadata field that I drag into the inherited section will automatically be inherited from the master clip that you're subclipping from to all the subclips that you generate. So if you know that you always have certain things like an overall description of the asset as a whole, or in this case, I have two different description fields that were used for different purposes, or a location or talent, then I can add those into that inherited field to make sure that they come across specifically from the master asset. In this case, I'm actually going to turn off the talent field for now. So now if we go back to our asset here, we can take a look at some of our clips, and we just have little sound bites.
We are here
there
today for two work.
Yeah, so I just have a couple different
here?
sound bites, and then what I've done is I've tagged the talent, so I can see Skylar was on those, and if I come down, I think I had, let me just tag someone else here on one of them. Okay, so on this one, I'm going to update and say my talent on this one is Vincent. So then the next piece of this is a lot of times you're going to have a lot of things that you've tagged, but you don't necessarily want to create a subclip for every single item that's tagged, especially if these tags might come from an outside source. So we have clients that are using this subclipping utility that also are using an integration we have with EVS. And with EVS, what they're doing is they're doing live logging during the event, and all of those EVS logged clips are becoming time-based metadata within Iconic. When they do that, they come into a 2-hour or 4-hour long clip sometimes, or asset sometimes, that might have 200 clips in it. And the last thing they want to do is generate 200 subclips. So what you want to do is generate subclips just for what you want. And that's where this confirm subclip file generation piece comes in. You can either select it here when you're going through and looking at all your subclips, or as you're creating it, you can turn it on right here. There's also a subclip created field, which is going to be off by default and is not going to be editable, because that's the one just to let you know after our workflow has run and successfully created those clips, that's how you know which ones are already in existence. And that's also how we know not to try and recreate clips that have already been created before. So now that I have a couple different clips that have been identified for subclip generation, you can see as I scroll through this, a number of those clips that are green. On the right side, I can see my relations, and at the moment, the only collection or the only relation to this asset is this long form collection. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here, and on the side, I need to double check a job here. Okay, cool. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go and execute my subclip workflow. Now in this case, I know I want to generate subclips with Zencoder here. So I'm going to run that one. And it's going to ask me to confirm the creation of subclip files because we don't want people to accidentally click that when there happens to be a lot of things that would be queued up. And we're going to click submit. So while we wait for that to happen, a quick note about the different transcoders that are supported and why some people choose one transcoder over another. So the first transcoder we did this integration with was Zencoder, and Zencoder works for a number of people. It's nice and inexpensive. It's really quick and easy to set up an account, and it's a very quick deploy and just simple overall. The downside of Zencoder is I don't believe they support any more than 6 channels of audio. So if you have multi-channel audio that has 24 tracks or anything over 6 channels, then it's not going to really work for you. So after that, we went to Amazon Media Convert. Amazon's a great option for a lot of people. It's incredibly robust. You can make it incredibly performant. It'll support just about every format out there. So that's definitely a good option. And then after that, we did Dolby Hybrid, which is actually probably even better priced than Amazon at volume. So once you get over spending about $1,000 a month, because that's their minimum, once you get up to a couple hundred hours of content processed per month, they become one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest transcoder online. So that's a really good option. And then the last one is doing a local FFmpeg version. And that's a great option for anyone who doesn't keep their content in the cloud. So if your content is just local and you want to be able to still get the benefits of doing subclipping, but you want to keep all of that, everything of your high res running just in your local facilities, then you can utilize that one. All right, so let's go take a quick look at what's happening in our jobs. So we can see some transcodes happening here, and we're seeing some transcodes happening of some subclips at this point. And if we come down here for this, we can see our subclip generation job overall, and we can see that that is now complete. So if we come back over here to our main asset, the subclips are complete. What's actually still running, it looks like, is they're still generating some of the specific thumbnails and keyframes. And if we just refresh one more time, probably, yeah, we can see them starting to come in here. So let's go jump over to this one here. So what we have is now this asset was named the original asset name _ SC004. So we follow a standard naming convention. You can always rename them afterwards, but by default, we always name it in the order in which the subclip was out of the list and the order in which it was created. And if we take a look at the metadata on this asset, let's see if I actually have that metadata field. I forgot to look at that part. Let me actually go add it back to this production metadata view real quick here. So I have my metadata view, my metadata field that I created for talent, but I do need to be able to see it. So I'm just going to add it here. All right. All right. So now we can see that talent field didn't come across on this one yet, but also I got to make sure I know which ones we had it connected to. So let's do this. All right. So within this asset, a couple different things. first off, I can see that now I'm looking at an asset that is only 12 seconds long.
And you're stating in front of all these people that it can do what those people do and more for a fraction of the cost, part of the cost. I would definitely say yes.
Look at that handsome man saying that. All right, that's me from, oh God, way too long ago, 2010 apparently. And so what we see on the right side is our relations. We have sources. So if I want to get back to that master asset, I can click here. Now we're back in the master asset. And if I want to go and look at which one of these items actually had some other metadata that I should expect to find, let's just go to probably the very first one here. All right, so in here right now, we don't see that talent field. The reason why I don't see that talent field is because when I went to that settings, this is why I disabled it so we could illustrate this. If I go to my subclip information, we can see it's not listed within here. But if we add this talent field back in here, and now we go back and we create a new subclip. So I'm going to come back to our master asset here, and I'm going to come a little bit further in, and let's create one more. Actually, let's just select another subclip that already exists here. So we'll do this one here. I'm just going to edit, talent, set the value, confirm, and click save. So now that I've done that, I've already created subclips for all these other assets. So I don't want it to recreate any of those. This is why on each one of these ones we ran before, subclip created is now selected. But on the one that I just did, we only see confirm subclip file generation. So now I'm going to run this again. And there we go. This time should definitely go a bit faster because we're only doing one subclip. So we can see within the subjobs, the first thing that happens is we're reading all those asset segments. We're updating some metadata. After we're actually creating the new asset, we're generating that actual subclip right here. And this is where we can follow the process of the actual generation of the new subclip. And if we go into this asset, we can actually already see that our metadata has now come across. So any metadata fields that you want to have can actually come in directly through this process. So you can map any of those fields. That's what we wanted to show. All right, so I'll give that a moment here and it'll finish in just a little bit. Let's see. So the other nice thing about this, of course, is that now I could go into Premiere and I can start editing with these subclips. But the other great part is that if this original content had time code on it that was not, that has actual embedded time code on it, then what we're able to do is maintain that source time code on all the subclip assets, so that when you bring these down into your NLE, you're able to start editing with those subclips. And then once your edit is complete, be able to do a single reconnect to be able to reconnect back to the master asset. Now, what we're seeing in this one I'm looking at right now, not going to be the case because of going through Zencoder, and the default configurations I have set up in Zencoder aren't going to maintain that. The default configurations we use inside of Amazon and inside of Dolby Hybrid will retain that time code. Actually, even in FFmpeg, it'll retain that time code. I believe Zencoder is about the only one that does not retain that time code information. But being able to do that relation back and be able to do that online process is as simple as just knocking offline all the assets in your timeline and then being able to do a reconnect back to the asset. All right. As far as setup and configuration, The subclipping setup is very quick and easy. We can actually do this practically a one-button deploy, so we can get it deployed for customers normally same day or within a day or two after it's requested. And then normally we just have to look at kind of transcode settings and help people configure their transcode settings to make sure they're getting exactly what they need to have set up there on the transcoder to make it all work right. And then aside from that, our only other settings really are what we were looking at before in the subclip information piece. And part of the deployment will automatically set up this whole side, so you don't have to do anything for that. And then we walk customers through how to set up the inherited fields, do some testing, make sure all of that works. And then one last thing I'll show you guys is if we go to that subclip section here. In the subclip information field, the things that you'll always see is the subclip ID and the subclip title, as well as the segment ID, so you know exactly where it came from, the iconic job ID that was around it, the Zencoder job ID or whichever transcoder you're using, a Zencoder output ID to track the actual output file that came from Zencoder, and what the actual Zencoder status is. So especially if you're doing a lot of these, you can actually monitor it and monitor all those jobs and be able to see all that just by looking at the list view of the list of all the clips that are in the process of being generated. So I think that's about it as far as a quick general overview. I'll start with Sherry here on our side. Sherry, any specific questions you can think of, anything I may have left out or not made clear here?
No, I don't think so. I think just thinking about what you said here with subclipping, we've seen it come up a lot and more people are, inquiring about subclipping. Why do you think that is now? I don't want to say all of a sudden, but it seems like there's definitely been an uptick. So what do you think we're seeing, or, what's making people interested?
Definitely. I think one of the biggest reasons why we're seeing more and more people asking about it these days is because of the big move to cloud that has been happening over the past couple of years, especially because of the pandemic. So as more and more people have gotten more and more content into cloud, then they're starting to realize that one of the big pain points of working with all that content in the cloud is the fact of needing to download a full hour-long clip in this case, or in cases of some of our video game customers, 3-hour, 4-hour, 6-hour long clips or assets when the user only needs 5 minutes. And it's really it's not only does it take a long time to be able to do that, but they're also incurring big egress fees because they're constantly having to pull down all this larger content for every user who wants to use even just a small segment of it. And as people have been doing that more and more, I think that's why we're hearing more and more people starting to ask for this, because there's more of a need to make sure they can extract just what they need.
Gotcha. That just reminded me, I think we had a conversation not too long ago, and you were saying how when people have to pay for a certain amount of time, is this the same thing? You had mentioned if someone wanted to use, I think we use the Jay Leno show as a example. And could you go over that real quick?
Yeah, so that's another thing that we've seen is a lot of content owners have, they're pushing their whole content libraries into the cloud. And then these content libraries often have, pretty long clips, maybe full TV shows, maybe years and years of seasons of TV shows, like some of these late night show owners of all the historic late night shows. And they license this content out. And what's working really well with Iconic is that they can use Iconic to be able to provide people access to the proxy so they can check out all this content. But at the end of the day, what people are going to end up doing is they're going to be paying per minute of content that they license. And so the content owners usually will get requests for literally a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes out of these long pieces of content. And they really want to keep that content in the cloud, secure, where it needs to be in its long-term storage, sometimes in the Backblaze or Wasabi, maybe something a little bit less expensive than just a straight Amazon bucket or a Google Cloud bucket. but they need a quick way to be able to download just that piece. And even better is be able to do that in a way that they can make a little bit of a self-service kind of model. And so what we've done is set up workflows, for example, where all the content that comes in might automatically get watermarked through one of our other workflows that does dynamic watermarking. And then it also might even get an embedded trackable watermark where we do a DRM workflow that can do that. And with that trackable watermark or the embedded visible watermark, they can provide their users and their customers access directly into Iconic to be able to run this subclipping workflow and be able to just create clips off of just the assets they've allocated and then be able to download just those clips.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something that's helping a lot for those content library owners that are trying to resell that content.
Fantastic, fantastic.
I think I see one question in the chat here, or two questions. So cost for the plugin, and is there a capability to rename the relation pair as source for the master and subclip for the subclips? So yeah, so at the moment, you're right here, it is saying sources here and it's saying sources there. So yes, that is something that actually, this is because I actually have an older version deployed onto this. It does usually say sources for the master and subclip for the subclips. Thank you for pointing that one out. That is just a bug in this current implementation we're looking at here. So it does make more sense. And then as far as cost for this, let me see who all we have on here today. What I can do is I can happily share out to anyone on this call who doesn't already have it. For our resellers, we have a Google Sheet that has a full price list for all of our resellers. And then for clients, we also have this Google Sheet that has just a list of all of the different workflows. We don't actually talk about specific pricing on these calls because we work with a lot of reseller partners, so we ask that everyone communicate with their reseller. If you are a direct client, feel free to shoot us a message afterwards and we can provide you information as far as specifics on that then. But I can tell you as far as where this lands within our workflow stack, it's in our monthly fees for workflows. This one's probably kind of middle to lower size as far as these are concerned. So we try not to talk about specific pricing on these calls. If I have any other questions from anyone else in the audience, feel free to just chime in, speak up, have your turn on your mic if it's not on.
Is it on the transcoder side where you control the actual dumping location to where the file gets located when it gets back into Iconic storage?
Good question. No, the location where the files end up. So the transcoder side is definitely a part of that, but we're just watching where the transcoder is dropping that file and then being able to pick it up so that we can get it ingested back into Iconic. So that setting, let me see if I can find it here. So what you have right here is your subclip settings field. So you have a subclip destination storage. So this is just an Iconic storage ID. So whatever storage ID you place here is where those subclips will end up. And then this is also your subclip assets view ID. So this is showing which metadata view to be using to be able to pull that metadata for the subclip. So you can actually adjust this as well. This one is actually an older setting. This is used if you want to specifically designate one metadata view. These days, we've actually overridden this, and I don't think this setting is actually even valid at this point, so that you could use multiple metadata views. And what we do is all we look for is that the metadata view must contain, we go to that subclip one here, the metadata view just has to contain the subclip created and confirm subclip file generation. Any metadata view that contains those two options will work for generating subclips. But those are the only two primary settings. So yeah, any storage you like will work. And also if the content resides on a storage that's not compatible with the transcoder you're using. So for example, if you're using the Amazon transcoder, but your content resides within the iconic GCS storage, we will automatically copy the content from the GCS storage to a temporary S3 location to be able to perform the transcode. And that temporary S3 storage would be used as the same as the
Is that the same case if it's the file's on-prem and you need to do a subclip of the original? Will it actually transfer the original to the temporary cloud storage?
Yes, that is correct. And same way in the inverse, if you deploy the FFmpeg version of this workflow, and so you're running FFmpeg on-prem, then we can actually transfer the file from cloud down to the on-prem storage to be able to perform the FFmpeg transcode on-prem if the file's not already there. Usually that doesn't happen because most people who opt for the FFmpeg version do it because they're not keeping their source files in cloud. But it is configured to specifically support that.
Fantastic.
Any other questions?
For metadata, is the only way if someone missed adding some of those metadata tags when they created the subclip, is the only way to get that metadata from the original clip onto the subclip to recreate and do a new subclip, or is there a way to force update and kind of transpose that metadata if they realized after the fact?
It's an interesting idea. We do not have a way currently to be able to send metadata after the fact. However, what you can do is we have another workflow that can automatically just transfer metadata from one asset to another set of assets. So it's our metadata copy paste workflow. So you could use that workflow and just set the metadata one time on one of the assets, and then you literally right click, say copy metadata, select the other assets, right click and say paste metadata to be able to accomplish something similar.
Gotcha, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason, I imagine on the transcoders where you're going to be controlling what it's actually creating, whether it's trying to match the source resolution or the source codec, or whether you want it to be an alternate codec.
Yes, so that's a good point, actually. Within the Zencoder, the nice thing about Zencoder, again, is it's all about simplicity. Within Zencoder, it's really easy to set up because they do have that same as source option. So you can literally just turn on same as source and be up and running and having everything look good right away. Within Amazon, there is no same as source, unfortunately. So you do have to take some time to really figure out what is your final product, what kind of final format do you want all those subclips to be, and come up with kind of a subclip mezzanine format that you can configure within Amazon. We have a pretty
good support for the Advantage Cloud port at this point?
I haven't done any testing with Vantage Cloud Port. We are set up to support Vantage in general, and theoretically, if you had a local Vantage that was communicating to Cloud Port, you could actually do it that way right away out of the box. But we haven't done direct integration to Vantage Cloud Port yet. Usually, to integrate with a new transcoder entirely is not too much work, though. I'd say it's normally probably a week or two at most to be able to integrate a new transcoder. Anyone else have any other questions? Okay, so what we're going to do is we'll have this video available up on our website. If you go to our new website, if we start the landing page here, There's a section up at the very top right corner for Win Workshops, and this is where you can see the previous workshops. So this one will be added here. We are doing these workshops monthly at this point. The next workshop that we're going to do is the next big question here. We have a number of different ones that we've talked about. Sherry, do we have an idea right now what that next one is yet? I thought we had, let me double check here. So one of the ones that we're thinking about doing is we've been doing a lot of work with MRSS feeds recently. That's been pretty interesting. So we can assist people with migrating content into Iconic from an MRSS feed. So you can literally just point it at an MRSS feed, and all the content in that MRSS feed will be transferred and ingested directly into Iconic along with all the metadata from that MRSS feed. At the same time, we then also did a workflow to do a very customizable deploy, let's say, deliver to MRSS feed workflow, in which you can actually configure multiple different MRSS feed formats directly within Iconic itself and be able to control the creation of many different formats of MRSS feeds all from within Iconic. And the nice thing about that is it really alleviates the need and the cost that many customers are paying today to these MRSS feed hosting companies that are just there to host those feeds. So that's a newer workflow that we recently finished up that we're going to be definitely adding to the list here. I know we're also going to be talking about our auto scale transcoder sometime soon here. And we have, actually, if we go through here, a lot of the ones that we're going to be talking about are on this list. But by all means, if there's anything specific that anyone is aware of things we've done or have questions about things we've done or workflows you think might be good to feature or you just want to learn more about, please let us know. And yeah, we're going to try and feature as many of these different things as possible to really raise awareness of all the different things that are possible through us directly and, of course, through all of our partners. So let's see here. So yeah, I think that's about it for today, unless anyone else has any other questions or thoughts. Cool. Well, thank you very much for attending, and please feel free to hit us up anytime if you want to dive in deeper and check out any of these or get any more information on pricing. And we'll look forward to speaking with everyone soon.